Hello. Um, I decided to make this video because there are quite a few things I would like to communicate with as many of you, my sickle patients at the Homerton, as possible and as quickly as possible. So I ended up doing my first and most likely last YouTube video. But there you have it, coronavirus works in mysterious ways. So there is no question that the last 3 months have been awful globally, really. So many thousands of people dying, all sorts of horrible things happening. But that is not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk to you about is about some very positive things that seem to be coming out of this as far as your care and your management is concerned. Things that I think both you and ourselves can learn a lot from and actually improve things even after things get better. In the first instance, I really feel the need to congratulate you all because I think you have done an amazing job at actually sticking to the public health guidance, sticking to the rules, really taking care that you self-isolate, that you shield appropriately, and therefore reducing a lot the risk of you getting infected. And I can only imagine how hard that has been for all of you and for some of you even more than others. And I think that overall you did a brilliant job. The other thing that emerged is that you actually managed to get admitted to hospital a lot less often than before. So if I show you your hospital admissions, the hospital admissions for sickle cell crisis, for painful crisis, over the months of March, April and May, and compare them to the averages for those 3 months over the last 5 years, you can see that the number of admissions has reduced anything between 35 and 60%. And that is an astonishing reduction. I must say that when I started noticing this pattern by the end of March, on one hand, I was quite happy because I really wanted you to stay out of hospital as much as possible to avoid the risk of getting infected. But at the same time, I started getting worried that some of you might avoid hospital because of the fear of coronavirus and at the same time risk of getting sick at home and not seeking help when you should. And at that point, myself and other members of the team started calling you, constantly trying to see that you are keeping well, that you are keeping safe, and actually advise you that if you notice anything getting worse, you need to come to hospital. More than just the reduction in the number of admissions, you can also see that the length of stay for whenever you got admitted to hospital was more than half than what it used to be in previous years. So not only our patients collectively have been admitted a lot less than before, when they do get admitted, they stay a lot less. So if you combine the much smaller number of admissions with the fact that these admissions are far shorter, you can see that the total number of days that our patients spent in hospital over the last 3 months, March to May this year, are actually 76% less than what they had been on average over the last 5 years. And that is an astonishing figure. The last thing to say is that we also collected data on the 10 patients of you who have generally been, who are worse affected by their disease, who do need to come to hospital a lot more often than anyone else. And what we saw is that even for this group of patients who are very severely affected, who do come to hospital very often, even these patients, they were admitted to hospital, they spent time in hospital 2/3 less than the previous 5 years. So the reduction was just as impressive for this particular most vulnerable and worst affected group of patients. So the data have shown you for the months of March, April and May. I have not fully analyzed the data for June, so that's why I'm not showing them to you, but I can tell you they are actually pretty similar. I just don't have the precise details, and that's why I'm not showing them. Now, I said earlier that when we noticed this sort of drop in hospital admissions, we started calling you to make sure, for one, that you're keeping safe. And I must say that there were these very encouraging information coming through. Your feedback was very encouraging. Obviously, some of you did find it difficult, were struggling, but I didn't get the feel that things were any worse, at least, than what they had been before. At the same time, it was not a small number of patients who actually said that they were feeling better and they were feeling stronger. And that was extremely important. And that includes that group of patients I mentioned that are worse affected, that come to hospital very often. Another very, reassuring thing for us was that it was very clear that you knew that if you do get ill, you have to come to hospital. So that was very important. I was also very happy to realize that you're actually engaging with your GPs a lot more. And on the other side, the support you got from your GPs was actually excellent. I was always asking you about whether you have enough supplies of your medicines, whether you need anything. And the answer I was getting from everyone was, everything is sorted, your GPs renew your prescriptions, you have no issues. So that was extremely important, and I think that is something that we need to take forward. So putting everything together, what we see is that our patients with sickle cell disease can, under certain circumstances, spend a lot less time in hospital. And there is no question that that can be of great benefit. So we need to see what led to this. And it's not just one thing. Obviously, the threat of coronavirus was the driving force. But we also need to think of all the things that had to be in place to support this effort to stay out of hospital. So the fact that we managed to keep our day unit open so that you can have some treatment and go home when needed, the fact that we carried on with the transfusions that many of you do need so that you don't get any worse, the fact that we had the ability to keep in constant contact with you and have that very close sort of monitoring of your condition all played a big part. And I'm so grateful to our managers who allowed our services to run pretty much as normal, and to the wider team in sickle cell and thalassemia, our nurse specialists, our day unit nurses, our clinical psychologists, our junior doctors, all the other members of the team that actually kept things going and being able to provide you with that support, as well as the primary care physicians who played the very big part in this. There is no question that as far as coronavirus is concerned, we are in a much better place now than what we were 3 months ago. However, the threat of coronavirus is not over, and no one really knows when it will be over. But apart from coronavirus, we know that admissions to hospital carry many risks, other infections, clots, and overall a weakening in one's sort of overall health, and let alone that it is really disruptive of your everyday lives. Don't get me wrong, you have an illness that will require coming to hospital, being admitted to hospital again and again. The question is how we can improve your ability to manage more outside the hospital based on what we've learned over the last few months, both in terms of you getting that confidence that you could do it because you did do it, but also from our part is what we can do to support you to spend more time at home, less time in hospital, to the extent that that is feasible. So, for example, one thing we have seen is that this ongoing contact over the phone is actually quite helpful, and we plan to actually establish that as a regular practice from now on, coronavirus or not. We are trying to get more things out of hospital and into the community, closer to you, things like where you have your blood tests or your different other tests, some consultations basically happening in the community, and at the same time improving even more the work with primary care, the work with GPs, where we can have a joint approach. This is work that we have already been doing, but this is an opportunity to make it even stronger, to work more with primary care, with your GPs who know you well as from their side, and try to give you a lot of support in the community in an attempt to actually reduce the amount of time you need to spend in hospital. That can only actually lead to an overall improvement of your health long term. So I'm not going to say anything more at this stage. All I want to say is, again, congratulations for having managed to cope so well under such difficult circumstances, and say that we are going to do everything we can to carry on supporting you in the community. I think there are many things we are all learning out of this that will actually lead to many improvements. So please continue to stay safe. The advice is always, if you can avoid coming to hospital, do so, but just as important, if you do feel you're not well, that you need to come to hospital, all the provisions are there for your care to be safe and separated from coronavirus cases. So please don't allow yourself to get sick at home. Come to hospital if you need to. And again, well done, stay safe, and take care.